So everyone is doing this kind of like review of the recent Joe Rogan with Jack Dorsey and Tim Pool and Vidya, whatever, I believe that's her name. And I finally just finished listening to the entire thing, and it was good. I thought it was very good. And I have a few notes here that I just want to go over because I see like everyone's talking about this right now, and it's like, okay, I'll throw in some things as well. I watched a ton of videos on it. I watched a ton of I read like a bunch of forums and like Facebook groups and that of people talking about it to see what the general approach was. And I saw a lot of different reactions to it, both like not just based on your political spectrum or on your political leanings, but I saw people bring up very valid points. So I kind of want to go through that. So to begin with, I thought it was very good. I thought it was very, like, I'm glad that this happened, and I appreciate that it happened, and I think this is a good thing that it happened. If you were disappointed, sorry. I think it went well. I was not disappointed at all because I heard Jack was coming back, and I didn't know Tim Pool was going to be on there as well, so I thought that was good. And the fact that Visual was on there as well, I think was a bit was helpful because Jack tends to be very like, you know how Jack has a very like reserved personality. He's not very like out and open and out and about. He's very kind of quiet. And the fact that we had Vidya there to provide more answers with like more confidence in that, I think was helpful. But I'm basically like the good and the bad that I saw. One thing to remember is we really won't know exactly what to take from this for several months. We really won't know. Because what's really important right now is whether they follow up on anything. Because there were times during the 3 hours, 25 minutes, and 10 seconds that Vijay was like, okay, I know nothing about this, but that we will look into this and we will do something about it if that's if what Tim's saying is true, which it was. And so we got to see, like, does anything come of this? Do they take any action where they said they probably would? Or is it completely ignored? Like, the biggest example was Antifa. Like, that is something that is definite, like a definite double standard there, where you have like the Proud Boys that are out and that were banned completely because Twitter saw that they were designated by the FBI as a terrorist organization, which turned out not to be true, as they said there. They thought it was true, and it turned out not to be. And then they brought up the whole thing of Antifa. Like, there are loads of Antifa accounts here, and even though it isn't very top-down, even though it's kind of decentralized, there are still active groups that are like, yeah, let's commit violence against these people. Yes, let's be violent. And again, like, I know the Antifa people will, like, I follow loads of Antifa pages, and I know what they're going to say. If they heard this, they would say, like, well, I mean, again, Antifa is short for anti-fascist, so you can't really go after us because all we are is a decentralized anti-fascist group, so to go after us would be good to go against anti-fascism as a whole, and that's fascist to go against anti-fascism. But no, of course, like, obviously, if you look at these groups, there are groups. There are groups that sell merchandise. There are groups that work together, that talk amongst another, and like they have Twitter accounts and all that. So while you can't exactly say we will ban anti-fascist groups, you can say, okay, this particular Antifa group, one, for example, I think is Great Lakes Antifa. I follow them on Facebook, and they put out some pretty nutty stuff. Especially Melbourne Antifa, that's another one. Again, I don't follow them on Twitter, so I don't know if they have Twitter accounts or not. But Melbourne and Great Lakes are two of the big ones that they put out some pretty awful things, and they're pretty well organized. Like stuff that I would say is pretty close to terrorism, like definite calls for violence against innocent people. So again, like this is something where in a few months from now, and I get like it's a big company, it takes a while to do this kind of thing. So a few months should be plenty of time to start really looking through these organizations. Like the fact that they're on there is certainly concerning. And the most helpful part of this podcast was when they pointed out the obvious double standards. Because what happens is, I'm trying to think of this through the lens of someone that really doesn't pay attention to this stuff that much. People that really don't follow the specific examples of hypocrisy, and the ones that really just, like, they're hearing about this stuff for the first or second time. And so far, when it came to specific examples, when Tim Pool brought up, like, why'd you ban this person? Why'd you ban this person? Why'd you ban this person? Vidya had the tweets for a lot of them. She gave reasonings behind them. And even if you don't like the reasoning, at the very least, like, I think if you're someone that doesn't really pay attention to this stuff, they came off as credible because they gave reasoning behind them. It wasn't just like an arbitrary ban. Even if it was an arbitrary ban, they defended themselves rather well. So I think the points that really hit home that I wish, there were so many more that I wish Tim Pool would have brought up and focused on more, was the hypocritical parts where this person said this awful thing, they didn't get banned. This person said this awful thing, they got banned. Why? Like, it seems to be happening on one end of the political spectrum. And I wish he would have harped on that more. I don't remember him bringing up, was it Candace Owens, I believe? I wish he would have brought that up, where someone put out a tweet complaining about white people, like just awful stuff, like very racist stuff about white people. And I think it was Candace Owens took the same tweet and replaced white with black, or replaced white with Jew, or something like that. And then she was temporarily suspended. Stuff like that, like stuff where, again, it's two tweets. They're exactly the same, except for like one word change, like white to Jew or white to black, whatever it was, and one person got banned and the other person was fine. Those things, it's like, yeah, either it's intentional hypocrisy, or if it's not, it's a flaw in the system that they need to acknowledge and they need to work on. And that leads me to my next point, honestly. I don't think people really take time to acknowledge the absolute complexity of running a system like this. Like this, Twitter is gigantic. Again, millions upon millions upon millions of tweets. Loads of people talking all the time, posting all kinds of tweets and stuff. And they're taking that on as something they're responsible for. And I think we have to remember that it's not like Jack is paying attention to this and looking at every single tweet that gets banned. It's obviously something that's super complex, and I would not expect them to be correct about it. I would not expect them to have a system. I think it would be expecting way too much to have a system that is fair and treats everyone right and doesn't have any flaws and doesn't have like less than 100 flaws. It's a very complex system. Now, my criticism of that is not that, like, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it okay. The fact that it's something that they can't achieve and something that's very nearly, like, impossible to do fairly. And, like, one of my biggest concerns with, like, government overreach and all that is, again, like, it's not so much that I disagree with what you're trying to do. It's that it will fail. What you're trying to do will fail. It won't work. It's too complex. It just can't happen. That's my critique of all kinds of things. It's like if you want to say, like, get rid of abuse and hate and all kinds of, like, just awful, like, bullying and stuff on the internet. Like, everyone's against bullying. But again, like, can that happen? No, it can't. You're not going to do that without human error. You're not going to do that with bias and manipulation and flaws, and it's just not going to happen. So my big thing is, okay, if you want to crack down on illegal stuff, okay, if you want to crack down, like they said, pornography was legal on Twitter, if you want to crack down on the child pornography, okay, if you want to crack down on people calling for the deaths of people, okay, and they're not even doing that right, like they're not even very successful at that. If you want to crack down on doxing, okay, like I get it, that's difficult, but it's something that, as difficult as it is, I think we should pursue anyway, and there's going to be flaws, it's not going to be perfect, but I think it's something they should go after. And I'm fine with them saying they're going to try to tackle that. But when they go into this whole, like, we're going to try to tackle hate on the internet, we're going to tackle like, targeted harassment, stuff that is a lot more vague, and as they were saying, context is important. Whenever something came up, the answer was always context. It was always, like, context. But what about the context? What about the context? That's where it becomes impossible. There's no way anyone can do that. There's no way that a team of hundreds of, they said they have 4,000 employees. 4,000 employees across all of Twitter, not 4,000 people looking at these tweets. So they said there was roughly 1,000, I think. They said it changed all the time, but you could have 10,000 people looking through all of Twitter and finding all the hateful stuff and really looking through it. And I don't think you would do a good job of it because there's too much human error. It's just not going to work. Part of me thinks if they really were going to tackle this, they need to get rid of the human element of it entirely, with the exception of 1 or 2 or 3 people, and then just do it entirely, like, through the algorithm. And if you get banned, like, as soon as I'm saying that, I'm realizing the flaws of that system without humans to look at it. And it's just not going to work. Like, I'm sorry, the system's so big that I don't think trying to block people like that's going to work. I think the best approach to not scare people off the system is to really just say, okay, like, you got to understand we can't do this perfectly. Like, there are some people that are going to be bullied on Twitter, and that's just a fact of life. That's something that's going to happen. There are people that are going to get in arguments. People are going to call other people really mean names, but that's just reality of the internet. Like, there's no way they can fix that, and it seems like that's what they're trying to do. And Tim even brought up, like, the block features, the options of, like why can't we just do this through blocking? And Tim was like, yeah, well, we got to work on that. That's something we're working on now. Why not just focus on that? I wish they would do that. Just focus on the blocking. Like, right now, I'm like, with I hear Tim, like, Tim said he was getting so much hate and so much abuse and, like, just so much harassment from people that he said he just doesn't look anymore. It's just too much. He's not going to do it. So their system is clearly failing so spectacularly that for Tim Pool, it didn't work at all. It's totally ineffective. So why not? Again, why can't we focus more on just settings of blocking, like people individually blocking other people that can maybe turn off notifications or something like that? Why can't they focus more on that? That's what I don't really understand. Why can't they just focus more on just giving the user the power to choose that, to manipulate their own account and what they see? Why can't they focus on that? That seems like an obvious answer that I don't know why they're not pursuing. Now, looking at reasons why, that's something that really I think I wish they had brought up more, because at the end of this podcast, I thought that Jack and Vidya did pretty well, all things considering, like of what they were trying to defend. I thought they defended themselves better than I would have expected, and I ended up like sympathizing them with a little bit more than when I started the podcast. And then as soon as I listened to other people talk about it, it was like, oh yeah, there were these thousands of other examples that nobody brought up, that weren't even mentioned. And I wish like that stuff was mentioned, because that's what got me to realize, wait a second, like there's this clear issue here, and I don't feel like that was adequately addressed. Even though I thought the podcast was important and good, glad that it happened, I wish they would have brought up more examples of just pure hypocrisy. Because again, like you can take 10 tweets and say, look, these 10 tweets all said like this. They're all hateful things, they should have been banned. Well, that's just the algorithm. It's impossible to pick up all that stuff. So to expect them to do that, or to say that they're willingly allowing that stuff on there, I don't think is correct, because it's just too much to expect them to be able to do that, to be able to knowingly do that. What really hurts them is the hypocrisy part. Like Kathy Griffin was brought up. It's like she was calling for like the names and addresses. She was calling for violence against these kids. She was like, I want these kids' names. In context, it was clearly calling for violence, clearly calling for harm and to attack these kids. And why wasn't she mad? That's the things that I wish they brought up more, was the pure hypocrisy, which is why the Antifa point was so good, because they brought that up, and it's like, why is there a clear double standard here? I think the hypocrisy part really works good. But when it comes to hypocrisy, when it comes to whether they're trying to stop it, I really don't know how much Jack is consciously like is conscious. I don't think Jack is an ideologue. I will say that. He does not seem like someone that is a far left ideologue. He seems like someone that really is busy working on the real complexities of Twitter, and he finds himself in a tough spot, and he doesn't know what to do, and he's not so much a far left ideologue so much as he is like giving into and listening to what like the really far left people say. And that's still a problem, like, obviously. I think that's still something that's, like, yeah, like, that's something you really need to, as Tim said, even if he's not, like, actively, causing issues, he is still, like, what, the snowflake in the avalanche. He's still one that he's letting it happen. He's allowing it to happen. And I think at some point you do have some responsibility, but again, I can't criticize him too much, because I've never run a multi-billion-dollar company. Multi-billion-dollar? I don't know, probably billion-dollar. I have never run a company that big, and if I could, I would. And the fact that I'm not currently running a company means I probably can't run one that big. So I do have to at least lend him a little ground on that respect. I think the anger toward Jack is misdirected. It should be aimed at the fact that it's not that Jack is an ideologue. I think it's more that he's trying to work on a system that is destined to fail. That kind of thing. I think he's trying to work on a system to get rid of hate and violence, or not violence, but to get rid of hate and bullying, and it's just not going to happen. I think the reason everything seems so Twitter's failing at doing this is because it is an impossible task. They need to give up now, and they need to focus on the user experience, allowing the user to really show what they can and cannot see. I think that would be good. Like, there are people with block lists. Like, why not just let people use the block? Why not, again, like the block list, I've never used a block list. That seems kind of dumb to use a block list like that. But why not promote that more and just say, okay, we're gonna stop cracking down on people as much as we normally do, and instead we're just gonna say, hey, there's block lists if you want to use them. Something like that. Like, why can't they do that? Because I get, like, if you're a parent maybe and you don't want your kid on Twitter, I get, like, some people don't want to be on Twitter because of all the horrible people on Twitter. I get ISIS has been using Twitter to recruit. I get that. I don't get why you can't just focus more on again, the personalization, the block list, why can't you have it so Nobody, you can make it to where if you want that option on your Twitter account, nobody can message you, nobody can show you anything, and you can only follow the people that you want to follow, and you can even disable retweets so you can't see what people read, something like that. Some very like closed system where if they wanted it, they could do that, and then that's up to the user. I wish they would do something like that. That's just, there's some ideas for Twitter instead of trying to crack down on this. Now, when I say Jack isn't like far left, I think it's the fact that, as Tim brought up, the people he's hiring are probably quite left-wing, considering they're in San Francisco. The people they're hiring, the people that are actually looking at this stuff are quite, are disproportionately on the left. So that is, I think that's the big issue right there, is the people they're hiring are disproportionately on the left. There is such thing as human error. I think if you put me in charge, of, or not necessarily in charge, but you put me in that position of being able to go through and see, like, is this harassment? Is this, like, does this person deserve a ban? Does this person deserve a temporary suspension? Does this person did nothing wrong? Can I move on? I think I think I could do a lot better job than the people currently doing it. I think I would be a bit more fair and really look at the context. But I also think I would be biased because I am a human being. Like, someone posts something, someone that I really enjoy their content. V posts something, like, again, think just V, for example. V posts something on Twitter. If I were to look at that, I would probably give him more leniency because I like the dude. I think he's a good dude, and believe me, he puts a lot of stuff on there that could definitely be taken to be pretty awful if you look at it out of context. If you're someone that's never heard of V, or if you don't like V, they would be much more harsher on him. And that's just the fact of reality, that people are biased, and I don't think you're going to get rid of that human error. It's just not going to happen. I think that's the major issue there. It's just, like, that's something that I wish they would look into, more of the bias of the people going through these, because Twitter's political. That all these people being banned are for genuinely political, or often political reasons. And the thing is, if a celebrity posts something, someone that likes that celebrity versus someone that hates that celebrity, they're going to make different decisions because their bias is going to take hold of them, and I don't think that's really possible to be that fair. I just don't like that. I think that's the big issue is the people they are hiring, the people. It's not that they are actively trying to be left wing. It's more that's just the inevitable result of not really looking at that, not really taking that into account. And that's why I think this whole thing is just like, it's just a crusade that's gonna fail. It's just to try to hire human beings to go through tweets and to be like, they're literal censors. Like, that's the job of the people, is to go through and decide, should this person be censored? Should this person be censored? And I get someone has to do it when it comes to some pretty awful things like doxing and calling for violence. That stuff you need a human to look over. But I think the problem is when you expand that to, okay, hate speech and that kind of stuff. Like, when you start cracking down on hate speech instead of the things that are, like, objectively awful, like doxing, that's where bias takes hold, and it's just something they need to give up on completely. But again, I guess we'll see what happens in a few months. If these Antifa accounts are taken down, then we can at least say, hey, like, that's, at the very least, they're making an effort at it. At the very least, they took Tim Pool into account. Because I do appreciate the fact that I've seen Jack going on these more alternative media podcasts, and I don't know if that's because, like, I don't know why. I don't know who Jack is. I don't know Jack, to go with the phrase. So I really can't say what his whole point is, but could it be that he's just trying to do it to say he did it? Like, when people say, Jack, you're not listening to criticism on the right wing, he's like, well, I was on this podcast. Like, he might be just doing it just to say that, or he say, I was on there, there's your evidence. Like, there's your proof you can't criticize me now because I was on these episodes. Maybe he's doing it for that reason, or maybe he genuinely cares. I don't know. Maybe he's doing it because, like, obviously, if all of the right-wing people were to leave Twitter, that would cost Twitter some money. And it is, like, again, at the very end of the day, when it comes to running a company, money is important, whether people like it or not. So I'm looking at my notes here. What's the last thing? Impossible job. Human error will all exist. Using official sources. There we go. Official sources was something I had an issue with that I saw, that I don't think they even realize that they're being biased. Like, I don't think it's something they're consciously thinking about. They're still responsible for it. Again, people are responsible for correcting their own bias. But I don't think it's, like, as Tim Pool said, it's not people, like, twirling their mustaches, actively, like, thinking of, oh, how can we portray these people as far right and then ban them? No, it's, they're being biased, and I don't think they really realize it because, again, what are the official sources out there? The official sources are disproportionately left-wing. And I think that's where the issue is. Like they said, Proud Boys was a terrorist organization. Where'd they get that info from? Wherever they got it from, it was false, and they were wrong. And I think one of the big issues is that they're relying on biased sources, thinking they're legit. And when you rely on biased sources, you're gonna be, whether you like it or not, you're gonna include that bias there. So when, like they said, the Alternative Influence Network, Joe tried to play it down a little bit. He didn't think it was as important. But again, as Tim Pool brought up, people were reporting, like mainstream news outlets were reporting this Alternative Influence Network as if it was legit, and it was just a total hit piece. It was nonsense. Like it was just filled with lies. I know, I read it. I read the whole thing. It was just complete nonsense, and news outlets were reporting that as legit. So when Twitter then goes to use that as a reliable source, even if they think they're not being biased, they're still being biased because they are taking a like far left dossier or like something created by the far left that is full of lies, and they're taking that as truth. I think that's where the big issue is. So if they really wanted to fix it, if they really wanted to be like to really have things work out, I think one, just abandon the whole crusade of trying to police millions upon millions of people on this massive platform, and focus more on just the individual, giving the individual the power to modify their Twitter account how they want. I think that would be a better use of their time. Like, let right-wing Twitter have their right-wing Twitter, let left-wing Twitter have their left-wing Twitter if they want. People don't have to get involved in that. People, like, if they want, they can. If they want, they have the option to. If they want to risk being bullied, if they want to risk that, meeting someone rather unpleasant, that's life, that's the internet. They're going to have to deal with that. But if there's someone that does not want to do that, that's what, just give them the option to kind of close themselves in a bubble like that if they want to. But yeah, so I thought it's something where they tried to play it down a little bit, and I don't think they realized how much of an issue it is, notably because of their own bias. I didn't like the answers from Vidya. I know she's a lawyer, so she came across very lawyerly, and I understand that, like, she was probably thinking, like, I have to word what I say very carefully, because if she doesn't, it's like if she says something and slightly not really intentionally meaning it that way, or she worded it a bit wrong, that's going to be all over the internet. That's going to be like, well, this person, Vidya said this back then, and now Twitter's doing this. So I think she was wording her words very carefully, but the problem was it just didn't work out. Her answers was like, well, context is important, context is important, context is important. It gets like, yeah, context is important, but who's determining the flaw there is that the people determining the context appear to be quite biased. Because we've seen the obvious, like, again, when they were quoting Sargon's tweets, it's like anyone that has heard that before. No, like, anyone that knows Sargon knows he's messing around. Like, that was the internet back then. That was just, people were just messing around. He was making fun of white nationalists. Like, a lot of apparently what he got banned for was insulting white nationalists. Same thing with Patreon. It's like, he got banned for insulting white nationalists. And, it's like, it's anyone that knows him knows, like, can you really tell what's a joke? It was a joke. I'm sure he was making a joke. He was just being a jerk, being a bit of a jerk. It's like, this is not grounds for termination. Like, if this is your grounds for terminating someone off of Twitter, that's a very low bar that you've set. That's something that's very easy to hit. And again, like I just said here, you have to know the guy to understand what he was saying. Which, like, that's context. Are people really spending a good hour trying to figure out what this person is and what this person says, what they believe, what they're talking about? Are they really willing to spend all that time trying to figure out if they're joking or if they're serious or if this person's a friend or not? It's just an impossible task. Like, they kept saying context. Like, it's impossible. I'm sorry, I'm saying that right now. It's impossible. They're responsible for that too. I'm not saying, like, just because they don't mean to be biased doesn't mean they're not responsible for their bias. I think they are. But it's more that I think the issue is the news is biased. Lots of other things are biased, and what they're relying on is biased, and they don't even think they're biased because what they think, what they're relying on is biased, and they don't even know it. Now, what was my last thing? There was one more point I wanted to make. Oh, verification. That was it. I wish they would have brought up verification, because that's a big part. That's a big issue I have with Twitter, and they never brought up Twitter verification. So the idea of, like, if you don't know what Twitter verification is, if you're one of the few people that don't use Twitter that's probably watching this, the way Twitter verifies, like, if what Twitter does is, if you are an important person, if you are considered a public figure, you get verified on Twitter. And that's generally how it works. And the whole reason of verification is to say, okay, you're a public figure, like, we don't want, there will no doubt be people trying to contact you, saying good things, saying bad things. There will no doubt be people looking for you on Twitter. So what we want to do is make it easier for those people to find you. Like, And to correct for bots as well, because as you've seen, Elon Musk, he has a blue check mark. One of the big reasons Elon Musk has a blue check mark is because people are looking for Elon Musk, and they want to talk to him. They want to see what he has to say. They want to comment on his tweets. Another reason is because you will see Twitter accounts also called Elon Musk, where they'll change it'll be Elon Musk or Elon Musk, or they'll change something little to where if you're just glancing quickly, you don't notice it. The whole reason they do that is because these fake accounts that pretend to be these people that are probably putting out spam websites and stuff like that, you want to be able to differentiate. And that's the big thing with being verified on Twitter, is the idea that if you're a public figure, you should be verified. And Twitter uses it in a very different way, because as you'll see, there are very famous people. They're like Tom Woods, for example, very popular dude. Not popular in the mainstream, but very well known. He doesn't have a blue check mark. Why? There's no reason he shouldn't have a blue check mark, considering all of these other people have blue check marks. Like, they point out that there's a dude that's in a band. The guy's got 1,000 followers, and like he's just running like a rock band or whatever, and he has a blue check mark. And then you look at people like Tom Woods, like a New York Times best-selling author, written like 12 books or something like that, fantastically popular podcast, and no blue check mark. It's like, I get that it's difficult to run this stuff, but that's where the big issue is, verification. Now, the worst part about verification that I wish Tim Pool would have brought up was the issue with people losing their verification. I think Richard Spencer lost his verification. He's still on Twitter, but he lost his verification. Milo, before Milo got banned, he lost his verification. Why? That makes no sense. If you want to punish someone, you suspend them. You don't repeal you don't unverify them. Again, it's like, why if verification is really just used to say this person is who they are, why is it that when someone posts something offensive, they're suddenly not who they are? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And people brought up that by removing these verifications, a lot of people got bullied. A lot of people got abused pretty badly. Like Richard Spencer, for example. Richard, very popular name. Spencer, rather popular last name. I know of a few people with the last name of Spencer. And I know a lot of quite a few people, a significant amount of people with the first name of Richard. Very popular name. So you think Richard Spencer is probably a very popular name. Now, we saw what happened, where as soon as Richard Spencer lost his Twitter verification, hopefully it is Richard Spencer, not someone else, or I'm going to look really stupid here. I'm pretty sure it was him. As soon as that happened, if it wasn't, it was some other alt-right dude. But what we saw is as soon as Richard Spencer lost his verification, a bunch of people were like tweeting at Richard Spencer saying, like, you're a horrible person, I hate you, you're awful, you're a scumbag, you're an evil human being, and you're scum of the earth, I hope you die. Like, all this stuff towards Richard Spencer. It just so happened that they were tweeting it at the wrong Richard Spencers. They were tweeting it at all these other Richard Spencers that happen to share the name, and they're just like, where did this come from? I'm not who you think you are, stop tweeting me. That kind of stuff. And it made bullying worse because it directed all this hate at someone else, and a bunch of other people, just because they took away the verification. So that annoys me. It's like, why would you do that? Why would anyone in their right mind do that? And as they said, if their goal is to stop bullying, that's something they should have taken into account. Like, I wish that was something that Tim Pool brought up more, was the verification thing. The last thing I want to mention is the Southern Poverty Law Center thing, where it just seemed a bit weird how, again, like, Vidya does not have all of the information. She does not know everything, so she's not going to say yes or no unless she's positive. But when he asked her, like, do you take information from the Southern Poverty Law Center? Do you use them as a source? Do you use them for information? And there wasn't a no. It was a, well, I don't know. It was a bit of, we know they haven't put out reliable things in the past, and it was I wish they would have just said no. And I wish they would have said, and again, like, if Vidya probably didn't know. Like, Vidya probably wasn't positive if we have ever used the Southern Poverty Law Center as a source, or Twitter had. Sorry. But I wish what she would have said was, like, hey, I don't know for sure, but I would like to say no, and we shouldn't be using them as a source. If we have in the past, we shouldn't anymore, and we will stop using them. I wish it was something like that, because we can say for sure that the Southern Poverty Law Center is very biased. That's like using InfoWars for a source. Like, InfoWars is obviously biased, whether you like them or not. I'm not saying they're awful. I'm just saying whether you like InfoWars or not, they're obviously biased. Same thing with Southern Poverty Law Center. Whether you like them or not, they are clearly biased. Now, and for that reason, it's like, if you're using the Southern Poverty Law Center as a source, that's not a good thing. They have put out definite lies. They put out things that are totally false. They put down a parody making fun of white supremacists as a white supremacist symbol. That's what they're doing. But yeah, so I wish she had said something more confident about that. Like, yes, if we were using it as a source in the past, I'll make sure we don't anymore. Or like, I don't think we should use it as a source. Because I get that. Like, she's not positive if they have never used it before, but she should have said something. It's like, yeah, if we weren't going, the fact that she left it up for grabs means it's like, well, just because she didn't in the past, she never said she wouldn't use them again. So that's what I'm worried about. But overall, I thought it was decent. I thought it was good. I think Tim Pool was pretty spot on when he said it wasn't that he really thought like Jack was a bad person. Jack was twirling his mustache and thinking of how to destroy the right wing or anything. He's not like a political act. I don't think he's very politically active. I just think he's a dude that spends his time running a company and is looking at what he thinks is non-biased and using it as a biased source, and just taking the wrong going the wrong way about it, trying to stop this stuff, trying to crack down on hate speech. It's just not going to work. I wish he would think that, and he's responsible for that. Again, as much as I'm kind of defending him a little bit and saying I don't think he's like a bad person or anything, he's responsible for that, and I judge him negatively for that, for taking this route. Because yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, yet another video that went on for a lot longer than I thought. But let me know what you think in the comments section if you agree, disagree. I know a lot of people think I haven't gone hard enough on him. Some people probably think I went too hard on him. But that seems to be my impression. And I'm thinking about this from the perspective of someone that hasn't really paid attention to this stuff, that maybe watches Joe Rogan. Because I know plenty of people that they listen to Joe Rogan. They like Tim Pool. They thought Jack was a cool dude. They're not really they're not really too aware of what's going on Twitter. And I'm trying to keep them in mind. What are they thinking about this? And really all we can say is we're going to see what's going to happen in the next few months. If it turns out in a few months that nothing came of this, that they all these Antifa accounts are still posting all this horrible, evil stuff and just calling for violence in that, and nothing is happening to them at all, then I think that's the best example there to think really negatively of them, that they didn't care at all, that they didn't even care remotely. They were just doing it as like a PR thing. But if they do start taking down the Antifa accounts, I think that'll be a good sign that they are like, okay, they are listening at least. But that's what we'll find out. So I'll try to remember to really check on that in like a few months' time. Give it maybe 6 months or something, and maybe I'll... my memory's awful, so who knows if I'll remember. But I think that's what we have to look for, is to make sure that they are actually like, there was something that came out of this, that they didn't just write down some notes and toss them in the trash as soon as they left. I think really, before I can say anything for sure, whether they had good intentions, whether they were really listening, whether they're really truly being honest here, as biased as, like, I think they're biased, but if they are really being honest, we'll see what happens with these accounts in a few months. But anyway, like, it's a big issue, and I think they defended themselves just enough to get by, but I wish Tim Pool would have brought out some of the worst examples that they really couldn't have defended, like verification, the whole changing black to white or white to black, whatever it was. And that's it. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. Let me know if you thought this was, if you agree with me, disagree with me, tell me why. I want to know what you think, because this was a lot of conflicting thoughts going on here of like, are they decent or not? Like, I really can't tell. But I think we'll find out for sure in a few months. But again, subscribe for more. Hit the subscribe button. And thanks for watching.